Now, so rather we can see that when we talk about objectivity, what is happening is we are making a box, and which has its limitations, and all we can get, and then all our worldview becomes limited in that box actually, and therefore that box most of the time doesn't accurately model the reality. So, say for example, uh, now uh, now is he a good person or a bad person? So the question is quite objective, but if you simply go by objective stands, then we may be mistaken to a great amount, to a great extent. So so many times you will see that say in relationships, if one applies objective lens, okay, is he favorable to me or not favorable? Is he a good person or not? Is he a friend or not? So one day he may behave friendly, another day he may behave little averse, another day he may behave neglectful, another day he may be angry. So now is he favorable or not? That becomes a very difficult, I mean from an objective perspective, it becomes a very difficult question to be able to answer. So we have to, and therefore sometimes what happens is that in relationships many times it happens that say a person behaves wrongly once, and that is taken as a proof to stop that relationship or to have a permanent lifelong impression about that relationship. So is a person good or not? There is fallacy in the question itself, because no person is a good person or a bad person. That means every person is having elements of both. Now it depends upon what environment the person is in and what has been immediately fed to that person, and that is how one may retaliate, is it not? Like suppose even if an apparent good person, now poor fellow, he has come back, he has lost his job and come back, and if we are pinging him and poking him, he may blast out. And we may not know why he's blasting out. And we say, okay, he was a quiet fellow, he's becoming angry and shouting. What is the case? But so has he become an angry person? No, uh, uh, there is an underlying experience behind because of which he acts. So that means that all this goes to show that there is subjectivity in this world. We cannot simply take an objective lens. We cannot simply take an objective lens. Like sometimes I have seen, supposed to explain a concept. Now, sometimes I have seen that, okay, if you want to explain a concept, it's a complicated concept. So, so one class, to understand the spiritual concept. So I gave a lot of examples. I gave 1 dozen examples to understand that concept, and people were very happy that, okay, they got to understand how to relate with that concept or that principle of the Shastras from a perspective of so many departments, or so many different kinds of professions, so many different kinds of people. Another place, again I understood that, okay, people need uh, more case studies to understand. So I gave same number of examples. Maybe I expanded. But many of them in that particular class, their reaction was that, okay, so many examples. We got completely saturated. Oh, so many examples. This way, that way, this way, that way. So so it all depends. There is subjectivity in the whole thing. We cannot make an objective criterion. So uh, so now, if we try to delve into these metrics of uncertainty, if we try to understand that, okay, now what are the limitations of this objectivity, how to install subjectivity into our lives in a way in which things can be auspicious, and things can be no auspicious and successful on a material, spiritual, on all possible, on holistically, on all the planes. So to understand this, uh, we thought of diving into the realm of quantum mechanics, and trying to derive interesting lessons actually. So the whole point is that is not now the whole point is that how now the formulation of quantum mechanics is to make sense out of the probabilistic behaviors. I mean, probability theory is not quantum mechanics, but basically the attempt to make some sense, or to tap within the probabilistic behaviors, and to get something certain out of the uncertainty. So now this pattern very much maps to our mental patterns, very much maps to our mental patterns. So therefore behavior and the mind flow very much comes similar to that. Just like we have uncertainty in the trajectories of the positions of the uh, subatomic particle, there is uncertainty in our moods also. Sometimes on a very important occasion, we feel our mood is out, so we are not able to perform that well. And sometimes the mood is rocking, but there is no performance ground that time. I mean, we are all alone in a room, nothing to. So it's like uh, so behavior pattern, sometimes we speak the right thing at the wrong place, so suppose if now there are certain times where you have to be aggressive, there are certain times where you have to be tolerant, there are certain times when you can be charging, there are certain times where you have to be empathetic. And if we do this and also, so all these moves have their utility, but if we misplace it, then it leads to we'll end up in a problem. So we want to see that what kind of ignorance leads to this uncertainty. So yes, now leads to this uncertainty, and looking into and taking clues from the visions and the formulations of quantum mechanics, we can see and apply a lot of lessons in our own lives. So uh, so now, if you ask quantum scientists, and quantum scientists, quantum scientists talk about that now. Quantum scientists talk about quantum science being a very mysterious science. Uh, so much so that if one says that, that I have understood quantum mechanics, or I have understood quantum, then quantum scientists talk about that. That means such a person has not understood it at all. So such a person has not understood it at all. So as Nobel laureate Richard Feynman points it out, that the science is more knowledgeable than the scientists who made the science. So so therefore the point is that when it comes to this now quantum formulations, and quantum scientists and physicists talk about that all they understand is something very all they understand is something very minute. And what they understand how it works, but nobody understands why it works. And therefore the term comes that the science is more knowledgeable than the scientists. So that's how the term comes. The science is more knowledgeable than the scientist. So, and and all this while we take some cues and clues from quantum mechanics, always have the pointer and the pointer of life and behavior on. So we will see that yes, life, behavior, mind also behaves similar ways. Yeah, so Planck 1901 said that the whole postulation was an act of desperation. Yeah. Max Born, the theory is more intelligent than us. It knows why it works. So let's first embark upon common sense and scientific realism. Now we are using a jargon here. Now we are using a heavy jargon here. Scientific realism. Uh, so both are based on outer experience. Both assume that reality is knowledge based on our experiences. So what is basically scientific realism? Scientific realism means scientific realism basically means uh, an experience or a measurement of the parameters or the descriptors which are described by mechanistic science. And when you say, okay, a measurable or a descriptor which is defined by mechanistic science is that which has an instrument which can measure its value quantitatively. So that means that now if you want to understand uh, so because you see now the whole drive of mechanistic science is to give a measurement to everything. So that means there should be an instrument to measure everything. That means it should be a property, and that property should be measurable. So that means that if you want to understand what is reality, then all we will have is a list or array of properties, and we will measure the value of those properties using instruments. Now if we now, and that array or that measured value or that tuple, to say in more exact mathematical terms, that tuple of the measurement values, that tuple represents the reality. So this representation is called as scientific realism. This measurement is basically called as scientific realism, is it not? Now, say for example, let's take an example. How do you understand, say, how do you understand, say, iron? So now, if you may say iron, then we can say, okay, iron means, you can measure its crystal structure, FCC, BCC, say for example, so um, so maybe you can talk in terms of crystal structure, what lattice structure it follows, or we can talk about in terms of uh, magnetic properties. What is its magnetic coefficient? What is its electrical coefficient? So you can have a matrix like this. You can have a tuple, and we say, okay, what is iron? And then you say, okay, this is what is iron. Magnetic permeability this much, electrical permeability this much, and lattice structure this much. Valence band energy this much. Conducting band, band gap this much. So that's what we can say is, okay, this is what is that middle. Now this is basically scientific realism. Now let's take it a little further. Okay, let's take it a little further. Now how does it differ from a common sense understanding, or what is called as a common sense understanding, and how it differentiates from scientific realism? So now let's try to apply this. Let's try to understand, I mean, from a layman's perspective, if you want to understand, okay, what is a gulab jamun like? Okay, gulab jamun. So now we want to understand what's a gulab jamun. Now if we apply scientific realism, then we look for parameters. Okay, gulab jamun means what? Okay, now can I measure? Okay, I can measure morphology. What do I measure in morphology? I can measure color, is it not? I can measure texture, is it not? Then I can measure size, Is it not? Can measure volume to weight ratio. Is it not? So I can measure probably viscosity. I mean of the solution of gulab jamun. Is it not? So now from this, if we want to now come up with a definition of what is called as gulab jamun. So now if you want to come up with a definition of what is called as gulab jamun from this, we will say, okay, gulab jamun means you know uh, some an aggregate of or you can say a spherical aggregate of some brownish whitish globules. So it's a porous aggregate. It's a porous aggregate of brownish whitish globules actually, which have been coagulated into a spherical shape, and which is in a suspended colloidal state in a fluid of high viscosity. And we can give uh, we can give a value of viscosity, is it not? So, I mean, this is how we will define what is called as a gulab jamun from the point of view of scientific realism, is it not? So, now, just by hearing this definition, we can understand that there is an inherent fallacy in this entire description. Now, this description may be, very precise, and we may have the precise parameter values, but it is missing a dimension in itself, is it not? So now we bring in a common sense understanding of what is called as, we bring a common sense understanding of what is called as gulab jamun. Now, from a common sense understanding of gulab jamun is completely different, is it not? So one may say common sense understanding means what? Gulab jamun means I want it. It is my favorite sweet dish, is it not? So that's a common sense understanding. This is the gulab jamun, is it not? So I mean, one doesn't have to use shear force measuring instrument or a colloidal measuring instruments to be able to really measure or do some uh, microscopy to understand that okay, the conglomerate is made up of particles of which size, like that. We don't have to do scanning electron microscopy for that purpose and all that. All we have to do to understand what is the gulab jamun is put it in the mouth, is it not? So the small child also understands. Why? Because he has put it in his mouth. Is it not? And he understands gulab jamun is very nice. Is it not? So that is common sense understanding. So this goes to show that this goes to show or this goes to show that yes, what we call as common sense is a more holistic experience construct than what scientific realism can offer. Is it not? So many times we may say that okay, if you are more precise, if you are more precise, then it is more accurate and then it is more better. But that may not be the case always. So okay, if we are no, I mean, okay, if you want to calculate the speed of a missile and then accordingly design its structure and how much of fuel it should have and so on. So no, that is all okay. In that scenario, it's okay. But then every place it doesn't apply, and especially when it comes to day-to-day life, it doesn't apply at all. Say for example, we may say that okay, now if you want to understand the reality of something, the best understanding you can get if you have electron microscope vision, is it not? So now suppose we want to evaluate the beauty of nature. Suppose one has gone to the Himalayas. Suppose one has gone to a hill station. No. So one is in Nainital or Masuri or Ranikhet. No. So and then or Manali. No. And one is trying to figure out. No. I mean, one is trying to get and figure out the experience of nature. How is nature like? So now, and just imagine that if instead of the vision, the kind of vision what we have, now if the vision is more precise, so precise, it's at the accuracy and the precision level of an electron microscope. So if we have an electron microscopic vision, and with that we have gone to Manali, for a picnic, I mean, what is the experience of nature? What we are going to get? What are we going to see around? Very precise, very precise. We'll see all subatomic everything and all that. Is it not? But but what will be the experience? How much you can enjoy on that? Is it not? So this goes to show that no, it's objectification has its limitation. Is it not? We cannot experience beauty from simply an objective matrix that this is what it is. So there we have to apply a holistic perspective and a holistic vision, and that holistic vision is what we are terming as common sense. Is it not? It's common sense. So in life many things are like that. Many things are like that. It's common sense. Many times you will see that many times you will see that in life it happens so many times that there are many very intelligent, high scoring, say uh, MBA graduates, from elite universities in the world, and they are not able to run a successful business. Even though they have degrees and degrees on how to run business, and business management and so on. But whereas we can see, and at least we can see around in our country, there are so many businessmen who are illiterate. The person doesn't know how to read, write in English also. Somehow he can sign. With bare difficulty he can read Hindi. So such a person, but he is having crores of rupees of business running. So you may say, what is that? So degree, zero, is it not? Qualification, maybe 10th fail, is it not? And now bank balance, crores, is it not? So in this way, we can now start appreciating the point that that there needs to be a holistic spectrum which has to be there in life, which has to be there in life. So this is what happens now. If we try to compare, we will see that this is what happens when we start objectifying and quantifying everything. Then you may say, okay, it doesn't fit in my, my instrument doesn't measure this, so it doesn't exist. So in that scenario, what we are losing the very essence of the object, very essence of the object. That's why we will see that Shastras are giving us not a quantitative picture of reality, but a qualitative picture of reality. When the Shastras are talking about that, yes, all of us are part and parcel of God, and as part and parcel of God, we have the potentiality, we have the godly qualities, which are which are in a pre-installed state in our systems, and by deliberation, by proper choice, by deliberation, by determination, it can be installed into our system. So now this is a qualitative picture of who a person is. If you read Bhagavad Gita, in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord is not telling a successful man is a man who has a CGPA of 9.0. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord Krishna doesn't explain that a good citizen is one who can at least have $1 million enterprise, or a good citizen is one who can have a successful person is one, successful graduate is one who can have a 25 lakhs package. So Bhagavad Gita does not describe people and successful people and plus minus in that sense. Bhagavad Gita describes from the point of view of character of a person. Who is a successful person? One who has character, one who exhibits qualities. He's a successful person. So character, competence, both are measured in terms of qualities. And therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, if you will see a successful person, knowledgeable person, all these definitions are given in terms of qualities. What qualities and behavior a person deals with. So knowledge is not what I can cram up and I can vomit. But knowledge is about how I behave qualitatively. Qualitatively. Okay. So you see another study, another example. And a common sense says that okay, it's a brown table in front of me, but scientific realism will say that it is a set of atoms vibrating about their mean position, and we can show vibrational states and all that. No, we can make a diagram. So what is actually real? So this is the double slit experiment, the famous double slit experiment actually. Now, so yes, we can see the interference patterns. We can see the, we can see the interference pattern. We can see there is uh, uh, a band of high intensity, low intensity, high intensity, low intensity, alternating band. That's what we can see in a double slit experiment. Uh, So now interference pattern can be explained by the classical wave theory of light. I mean, it's adequate enough to explain that. So highest light intensity source, and we can see interference pattern. It can be explained by a classical approach. That's all fine. Now the interesting point comes here when there is a low intensity source of light. Low intensity source of light. Lo and behold, we don't see an interference pattern. Uh, we see uh, we see the photons not traveling in all possible trajectories. So that's surprise one. With low intensity light, spots appear one at a time. Spots appear randomly. Uh, Now the question is the relationship between the spots and the interference pattern is that of the part and the whole that are unrelated, related. So this is an interesting thing that okay, when it is a low intensity, how the trajectory changes. When it is a high intensity, how the trajectory changes. It's And now we will see that if there is long exposure, when there is long exposure, as you can see in the slide, now this is the case when there is long exposure, the low intensity light source, and we can see that yes, the emergence of the interference pattern is coming. So, so that's where we can say that okay, this is classical, and this is quantum. This is the quantum effect. So then, this is a quantum effect. The the interesting point to note is that we see that according to different situations, according to different situations, the photons are changing their trajectory actually. Photons are changing their trajectory. Now it says okay that, and when one of the two slits is open instead of both open, then the dots appear everywhere. So as you can see in this, if one of the slits is open, then the dots are appearing everywhere. So then there is no interference pattern. The dots are appearing everywhere actually, and according to the curves which is shown. This is again very interesting and surprising. Why? Because it points at the question that how do the photons understand which slit is open, which is how do the how can they reach everywhere when both the slits are open? Then there is an interference pattern, and when only one of the slot is open, then there is no interference pattern. Now, so now this is a surprise actually, and uh, so, I mean, this slide shows that okay, if one of the so the point now we can see P and P dash. If both the slits are open, then that particular photon it lands up at P dash, and if only one is open, lands up at P. So how does it understand that whether to take this path and hit at P dash or hit at P? How does photon understand that? This is quite interesting. In this way, we can see that even matter behaves in this kind of a mystical way, and in the subatomic realm, this kind of a mystical way is very common. Matter behaves in this kind of a mystical way actually. So it's like that it's in a from an outer perspective we can say that okay, is there are these subatomic particles having some element of mood into their behavior patterns, is it not? So so it's like it's quite interesting to note this actually. So see, when it comes to life, this is always the case like that, with the different situations, different situations, we behave differently. Same situation, we behave differently, is it not? So it's like now where is the element of knowledge coming from? Where is the element of mood coming from in the behavior of these subatomic particles? This is a question uh, which is not answered in quantum mechanics. That's why the science knows more than the scientists. Uh, so we only know that okay, this exists, but why it exists, how does it exist, we don't know. Nobody knows that actually. So so this is the point. But we can derive a very important lesson from this. Uh, the important lesson from this is the lesson of personalism, which we can draw out from this actually. So we can understand that nothing in this world is impersonal. There is personalism everywhere. There is personalism everywhere. Now we can say, matter is inanimate. How can you talk about personalism in matter? So, it's just like saying that. Now please mark the point. It's just like saying that, okay, in my home, there is a lot of matter. And if I say, okay, this matter is just out of randomness, and some chance and chaos, it has just accumulated here. So, I mean, that's not how it is it not? In our home, there may be matter, but everything in our home is personal. Is personal. There is nothing impersonal in our home. Why? Because everything in our home it's just like, okay, say we get up from sleep and we see that, okay, we just come out into the dining room and we see that there is a nice, lunch preparation with our favorite, gajar halwa and some puri sabji, which has been made. So now gajar halwa, puri sabji is matter. But then when we see that, we get tears of gratitude and love in our eyes, So how can if matter is impersonal, then how it can what is the emotion that we are experiencing? So that means for us, for a child, that matter is not impersonal, because that representation of that matter is done by a personal hand of the mother behind. Is it not? So at home, we can see that everything in the home, whether the paint or the furniture or whatever, the various facilities, although that is dead matter, inanimate, but it has been laid by a personal hand, and therefore that matter cannot be said to be impersonal, and therefore that matter is invoking a personal reciprocation in our heart, is it not? Just like, say suppose on a birthday we get a greeting card or we get a flower vase as a gift. So now the gift is impersonal, but it invokes a personal reciprocation out of us. It gets registered as a personal investment, is it not? So why? Because that gift is on its own has no existence, but the gift is manipulated, or that gift is being sent by the person, and therefore that now that arrangement of matter is representing the person behind, and therefore this matter is no longer impersonal. So inanimate is not impersonal. Inanimate represents the reciprocation of the person handling. That's the point we have to understand. So therefore nothing in nature is impersonal. Why? Sorry, nothing in nature is impersonal. Why? Because everything in nature is maneuvered and chosen and directed and channelized by the personal vision and hand of God. So therefore it is not impersonal, it is personal. So that's the point. So that's the whole point, is it not? Now we may say, okay, there are automatic cars, which can find an obstacle and change the trajectory so as not to, autopiloted cars, automatic cars, So we may say the car is impersonal, so how car can take a decision, or how car can understand? Car can understand. Why autopilot car can understand what trajectory to take based on seeing obstacles, the way a human being can do that. It can understand because inside these cars is an AI engine, and this AI engine is basically storing the experience of so many humans, who have labeled it that okay, this picture means there is obstacle, is it not? So how to identify the obstacle and then change the trajectory so as you don't see an obstacle. So that means what? That autopilot car is storing personal behavior, of human beings behind. Similarly, Mother Nature stores the personal behavior and the personal hand of God behind. So obviously, the God, God is acting Himself, and then God is having, as we discussed in previous classes, that God has a universal government, and God functions through a government. What in Hindi we call as devas are all ministers of the Lord's cabinet. God being the president or the prime minister, and his cabinet ministers are the devas. So the devatas or the devas, what is called as in Hindi. So now this is the point which you have to understand. So therefore we can say that yes, inanimate is not impersonal because there is a personal hand behind, and in everything in nature there is the hand of God, and because there is a hand of God, everything is personal in this world. So everything is personal, and we can see proofs of that even on quantum scales. When you come to subatomic particles, uh, that's the point. Yeah. Yes, I mean this was the final observation in that experiment. Uh, okay, let's see. Let us take the next principle in quantum mechanics, the principle of superposition. So this is an interesting experiment. It says that okay, I have now suppose we are talking about electrons, like that, and now we say, okay, now from scientific realism, if you want to talk about a quantum particle and trajectories of quantum particle, then all we have to do is that we have to make a tuple of mathematical descriptors, quantifiable descriptors, is it not? So then each descriptor value or measurement value is basically an instrument, is it not? So now let's take a hypothetical case, or let's take a simplistic case. Uh, uh, let's now, I mean, we are embarking on an experiment, taking a simplistic case, or you can say not simplistic, but the exact word you can use in English is abstractive case, not like that. So the experiment we are going to make is a real experiment which exists, but for simplicity of understanding, we are using terminologies which are a little simple to understand, rather than using uh, so rather than using some complicated, fear striking terminology, let's use some simple terminologies. So let's say that now to measure an electron, I mean, we have come up with two properties of an electron. One property is mathematical properties color, and the other one is hardness. So now when we talk about a property, then we have an instrument which can measure. So here we have these two filters. One can actually measure color, and how it measures color, basically now given an input of an electron, if it is a black electron, it comes out from the top. If it is a white electron, it comes out from the side. Similarly, there is a hardness filter. So if the electron is hard, it goes at the top, and if it is soft, it goes by the side. So these are the two instruments we have. Now let's see the play of it. So let's see the play of it. So we can see that now. So now basically, if you push any number of, or now if you push any electron from the color filter, you will see the, or you now if you push n number of electrons, if you pass through the color filter, we'll see 50% of them will be black and 50% of them will be white, like that. So now after one filter we have black electrons, and then again we pass it through the color filter, and then we want to again measure whether it is black or white. So here we so we see the result that the final output at the top after two filters is black. It's 100% of them will be black. So that's understandable. In fact, that's what makes that is what is a relief giving aspect to this entire quantum formulations. When we talk about that, okay, it's going to be probabilistic, it's going to be uncertain. So what is the certainty? So this is one level of certainty which you can find in quantum mechanics, that the color as a property is repeatable. Is repeatable. The same thing applies to hardness as well. So now, So now in the next one, we have two filters. There is a hardness filter, there is a color filter. Now suppose we pass on electrons, the hardness filter, up comes as the hard electrons. Now if you want to measure the color of hard electrons, 50% of them comes out white, 50% of them comes out black. This is another property which you understand. Now and you can get a feel, and parallelly in quantum mechanics this is how it has. There is lack of correlation between these two properties. A hard electron can be black or white. There is 50% of each. So vice versa is also true. Vice versa is also true. So now what's going to happen here? In this case, now let's see, in this case actually, we will see that we are inputting now random electrons. So up, those who come are black electrons. So now black electrons, yes, 50% of them are hard and soft actually. And 50% of them are hard and soft actually. And now the interesting thing happens. Now again we are measuring the color of a hard electron, you know. So again we are measuring the color of a hard electron. You know, it was black, and then black will be 50% hard and soft, and then hard is again coming, and we are measuring the color. So the output result, which comes very interestingly, is 50% of them come out to be black and 50% of them come out to be white. So uh, welcome to quantum mechanics. Uh, so this is how it happens. This is what happens, and this is what happens. So it's like uh, uh, now this is very much like, you know, if you ask a person, okay, are you in a happy mood today, or you know, or you can say, if you ask a question, are you happy, you know, so today if you ask a question, he will say, okay, yeah, I am happy today, you know, so I'm happy. Now if you go back tomorrow and again use the same filter and you say, are you happy, you know, the person may not be happy, you know. You'll say, no, I'm not happy. I'll give you a box in your face, you know. So what happens? The happiness filter is not working, because maybe the previous day the person got chow mein in his breakfast, you know, so he's very happy in the mess. The next day, you know, it was his worst dish which was made, you know, maybe some maybe some rice poha which was made which he doesn't like, so he's not happy. So so there is subjectivity in there, right? This is exactly like that. Yeah. Yeah, so this one is understandable. If black and white, you measure hardness again, you know, 50% of them hard, 50% of them soft. This shows that, okay, you cannot and we cannot measure hardness and color simultaneously. That means basically in our previous setup, what has happened is that when you measure one property, it tampers the other property. You measure the same property again, then it is going to give a different value. So uh, this is quite interesting. So this goes to show that, you know, things are very much holistic. Things are very much holistic, and things are very much holistic actually. So uh, so yes, now we come to the point that we cannot measure hardness and color simultaneously. Okay. So now, I mean, if you recombine, it's as good as, you know, and then take any measurement with the color or hardness, it's 50%, 50%. You know, that's what is going to happen. So we have taken no, white electrons, you know, hard soft recombine. Again, you know, we have put the hardness filter 50-50. It will be the answer will be 50-50. Now let's look at this. Sorry. So you have put a hard filter. There are hard electrons which are passing from the hard filter, you know, and then we measure color, you know. So send in hard, we split by hardness, we recombine, we measure color. It's going to be 50-50. You know, that's quite clear, you know, because there is not much correlation between hardness and color. Let's see here. Okay, let us see here. Actually, this is interesting. So this is interesting. Now, in this case, what's happening? In this case, you pass in white electrons, and then we split by hardness, softness. You know, we combine the whole thing. You know, the two parts, and then we combine the two parts, and then again you measure color. So, in this case, what should be the answer? Is it going to be 50-50? Is it going to be, you know? So here in this case, you know, the answer is not 50-50. The answer is everything will be white. So the answer is everything will be white here. Now you see this. Now this is also an interesting case study. So in this, actually, there is this hardness filter. Now we are passing now suppose we are passing white electrons. The input is white electrons here, hard soft combine. So if you combine it and then you measure color, if you combine it, now you have measured hardness. If you combine it, now you have measured hardness, you have combined it, and then you're measuring color, it's going to be 50-50. It's going to be 50-50. 50% of them will be white, 50% of them will be black, although the input is 50%. I mean, the input is white. Input is white. And now we make that variation, what you see in the figure, that we block one of the paths. We block the path of the soft actually. So now we block the path of the soft, and then we are passing as the input white electrons. At the output, if we measure the color, we will see that all the electrons come out white. So at the output, we are putting the color filter. We will see that all electrons come out white. So when the path is not blocked, it will be 50% white, 50% black. But when the path is the soft path or the hard path, any one of the paths is blocked, then it comes out to be white. So this is very interesting. This is very interesting. So in fact, now this is what is quantum mechanics, and it may be confusing to some, but but one aspect we can understand. It's quite interesting, and this is giving a glimpse. Now we can say, okay, suppose the path of the electrons is huge. It's many miles actually. Still, actually, the electron will show different behavior. The experiment will hold still true. How does an electron understand that path is blocked? Like that. So in one case, if the path is not blocked, it is behaving as 50% white and 50% black, and if the path is blocked, it is behaving as all white. What's happening? What's happening actually? How does it understand that? So this is where we are talking about that, yes, matter is not impersonal actually. So in fact, this is in terms of quantum mechanics, we'll see that this is the principle of superposition actually. So the superposition says that actually any quantum particle is not in in one state. It is existing it is existing beyond the states actually. But when we ask the electron that okay, which state, and we give a choice to the electron, black or white, so that means then the electron at any quantum particle is basically then that measurement actually has a lot of effect on that particular quantum particle, and therefore sometimes the quantum particle behaves one way, sometimes the quantum particle behaves other way. So superposition means that actually an electron is not exactly black or white, but when you put the measuring operator, when you put a measurement instrument, then you are asking this objective question, and then you are telling, my dear electron or my dear quantum particle, you can only tell me white or black, don't tell me anything else. So sometimes the quantum particle will say white, sometimes it will say black, and this is called a superposition actually. This is exactly what is called a superposition. So it's a very interesting phenomenon, is it not? It's like now if you want to give an analogy of this, if you want to give an analogy of this, if you say that okay, let's take a very gross analogy, and let's try to map that what this behavior means in our day-to-day experiential gross analogy. So let's say okay, money can either be money can either be in the bank or in the pocket or in the drawer. So let us say that okay, there are only these three states possible where money can be, and the total amount of money was 1,000 rupees. Now, so one says okay, let me try to measure now. You can use a measurement operator and check. So if I check, okay, in the bank there is 500 rupees, and then I say okay, 500 rupees in the bank, I understood, I got the value 500. I mean the value is 500. Then one checks in the pocket. Now let's say to apply the operator, the measuring operator in the pocket and checks. One gets a value 250. That's okay. The bank value 500. The two the pocket value 250. That means in the drawer there is 250. That's our gross experience. But if I if the whole money thing is following quantum behavior, then what will happen is that the moment you apply an operator on the drawer and you try to check how much money is in the drawer, instead of now to our utter surprise, that money will come out to be 800 or 700. This is principle of superposition. This is exactly what is quantum behavior all about. So it's not about 250. That measurement value is going to come out to be 800. It's going to come out to be 800. So this goes to show that. This goes to show very interesting observation. So now the quantum scientists talk about this. They say that actually the measurement operator is tampering or is tampering with the behavior pattern of the quantum particle. So every measurement changes the state of the quantum particle. So every measurement is changing the state, because it says that actually so in layman's terms, a measurement operator, an operator matrix, or a measurement operator is basically forcing the quantum particle to show off in this state or that state. To show off in this state or that state. It's pinging, it's polling, it's poking, and because it is poking, it creates a good amount of change in the state actually. So the state is not defined in an objective matrix. There is subjectivity in the state. It is in a superposed state, as if it's everywhere. This also, that also, not this also, not that also, everything, or you can say all contradictions, reconciling everything in a soup, it's there, But when you measure, then you are forcing it to come in either of the two, like that. So it's like, now you will see many times human behavior is also like that. Like say, for example, like suppose somebody comes and every 2 hours is asking a question, are you annoyed with me, are you annoyed with me, are you angry with me, are you angry with me, are you angry with me? Now if somebody is again coming and poking, are you angry with me, tell me now, are you angry with me, so the question itself will make us angry, is it not? Right? That's the point actually. So so in this way we can understand that that there is this aspect of subjectivity. There is this aspect of a holistic radar, or a holistic aura which is there actually. In the same way, we will see that when it comes to human beings, when it comes to people, when it comes to life, there is this holistic aura. Everybody has a positive element, a divine element installed in a system, and everybody has a demoniac element installed in a system. Now, in one sense, yes, when it comes on the part of an individual, it depends on an individual's choice. What is the exact behavioral pattern he triggers, or what gets awakened, what gets installed, what nature gets fed. Now, divine nature, demoniac nature, which nature grows? What we feed is what grows. And feeding means deliberate choice, is it not? If you deliberately choose to be okay, hold on. Okay, plugged in. Okay, so if you deliberately choose to be say selfless, then by making deliberate choices again and again, then it starts becoming a habit, is it not? So that means habit means what? Habit means that that quality is growing, and because it is growing, it is taking over the RAM space. It is taking over the processor state, the space in our hearts, is it not? That's the whole point. So that's the whole point. This works in a positive direction also. This works in a negative direction also. So just like how a person becomes alcoholic or a drunkard, it's the same way. By deliberate choice, is taking doing a wrong decision. Because of that, that wrong quality is growing, because that is what got the food, so it is growing so much so that it completely overpowers a person, is it not? So he becomes addicted. This works for positive qualities also. This works for positive qualities also. So in this way, we can try to understand that uh, that consciousness or life, uh, consciousness or life is a subjective, qualitative, holistic affair actually. And uh, uh, is life is about a holistic affair. And the second aspect what we are understanding is that just like behind matter, we were trying to talk about that behind matter is a personal hand, that is the hand of God. Similarly, we can understand that behind all of us, or behind consciousness, there is the super consciousness. There is God behind. And because everything is based on God, therefore everything is existing in a holistic perspective. That way. So, therefore, when to measure, what to measure is an important aspect, is it not? Why are we measuring it at all, and what are we measuring is an important aspect. Now, if you ask these questions in behavior pattern, that what exactly to measure, what not to measure, this is called as basically perception, is it not? This is basically based on perception. What you perceive is what you are going to measure, is it not? If you have a wrong perception, you will put a wrong measuring instrument, is it not? Just like sometimes some people misunderstand and they doubt, and now in suspicion they take a they put a test in front of the other person. But just putting a test or a question of doubt is what completely shatters the other person, is it not? So this happens in relationships. So what to measure is very important, and when to measure it is very important. So all that comes to all that comes to perception, that what kind of holistic vision we have, or whether we have a holistic vision in life or not. So that's why we need the understanding, or we need the directions and the knowledge given by the Shastras, given by God. We need God so that we can have a full holistic purview. Because we try to objectify just because we cannot hold on to a continuum. Therefore, now, so that means what? Not holding on to a continuum means we have less memory, or we have less knowledge, basically. So in this way, we can understand that all these principles of uncertainty in life is arising out of ignorance, actually. But God can show us, and the Shastras can show us light. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to move forward in the slideshow. Let's. There's some issues here. Okay, let's see further. Yeah. So this is another lesson which we can learn from quantum mechanics. So here we are understanding that, you see, the language of quantum mechanics is perhaps a language of relationships. How does the quantum particle is how the quantum particle is relating with the environment? with the measuring instrument, with the environmental settings, with the series of measurements what have been taken before. And so it's basically how it builds a relationship with the instrument, with the environment, with the ambience. That's how it's behaving. So this is I mean, you see, even quantum mechanics is teaching us, some of the most basic fundamental principles we lead in our life, actually. So when we say, okay, the language of quantum mechanics is the language of relationships, we will see that everything in our lives is based on relationships. You know, so now in mechanistic science, this is a new way of thinking, which is perhaps how we can get out of the confusions which we have been in, actually. Like, say for example, there is a Polish scientist, Skolimowski. Now Skolimowski talks about this, and he says, actually, and I mean, he speaks or he speaks about science, not from a cold observatory perspective. He says that when you talk about reality, from an objective perspective, it is as if you see yourself, you are seeing yourself from something outside of the reality, and then being outside, you are measuring what reality is. But actually, reality is not exactly like that. We are very much a part of the reality what we are measuring. And therefore Skolimowski talks about that this angle or this insight has to come into research. So this insight is basically the participatory perspective, that I am very much a part of the reality what I am measuring, not that I am something outside of it and in cold I am measuring what it is. Relationships, relationships. So life, the experience, very much is dependent on this language of relationships. How we relate with our family members, how we relate with our colleagues, what kind of relationship we make with Mother Nature, what kind of relationship we make with animals, with the domestic animals, wildlife animals. So what kind of relationship we are making, with material energy, So is there a relationship of exploitation? Is there an attitude of respect? Is there an attitude of is there gratitude in our hearts, or is there lust and greed which is fueling our moves? Everything depends on how we are relating with it, how we are relating with it. So we cannot just say matter, but what matters is what is our attitude and how we are developing a relationship with it. Okay, so this is an also, so it's like an optic illusion. So it appears to be a spider, but in reality it's a drawing. Actually, it's a drawing. So this is another interesting, I mean, this another I mean, you can have a lot of examples toward this aspect. I mean, so uh, so it's a drawing, actually. Similarly, I mean, so this is, I mean, what is the difference? I mean, that's how. Now suppose if you are seeing some black formation, you may say that, okay, it's a black cat, but it may not be a black cat. It may be a black sweater lying in a formation in which it appears like a cat. Is it not? So our experience may be that it is a cat, but it is actually a sweater. Is it not? So so here we are trying to come to this point that yes, there is a distinction between reality and experience. Just like we saw in that case of the drawing. The reality is it's a drawing, but the experience is it is a spider. Is it not? So basically, in this regard, actually, So in this regard, we can say that, you see, our experience is giving a form. Our experience is basically giving a form, but the numinal reality, the actual reality, may be completely different. So this is how we can try to understand the limitations of our approach. This is where we can try to understand that in our experience, our perceptions are ingrained, and our perceptions are going to be faulty. Our perceptions are going to be faulty. So therefore, we cannot base our lives completely on our perceptions, or on our perceptions. The reality can be completely different, is it not? So therefore, we need metrics which can, we need metrics actually which can deepen our perspectives, and that's what Shastras are doing actually. So when we say that, you know, that's what Shastras are doing. So the Shastras, now basically, if we try to understand that, okay, we may say that, okay, we're driven by science, we're passionate about science. The science is also, but one thing we can see actually, now we can say, okay, so what is the role of the Shastras, the scriptures, the spirituality, the directions of God, where is the role of that? So we can try to understand in this way that, you see, the realm of mechanistic science is the study of effects actually, is a study of effects. What happens actually if the force is like this, if the force is like that, what will be the trajectory of the desired object or something like that. So that's what is basically, we're starting somewhere, intermediate, and the whole study is based on effect. That's why we study forces, and what is the net force and the net effect and the net torque and all that, is it not? So spirituality is the study and zoom on causes. It's a causal analysis, that, okay, forces, how does the force exist? Okay, energy, but where from the energy comes? Let's zoom on the energetic. And if we go on this causal drive, actually, causal journey, we'll reach God. We'll reach God. So that's why you will see in mechanistic science, there is no such term as C, for cause. There is no such term in equations like that. So, yeah. Spoken in other terms, we say that the experienced world and objects, therefore, that is called as phenomenal. But whereas the ontological reality behind the phenomenal world and the objects, that is called noumenal, or the real world. So what I see is phenomenal, but it may not be reality. I see the other person as a bad person, but that's my perception, is it not? That's my perception. That's my perception, and it is going to be, and can be completely faulty, completely faulty, because we really don't understand much, is it not? Our wells, our perceptions are very limited. So then, then the whole question or the whole drive is coming that, okay, how do we deepen our perception so that from phenomenal we can start moving toward nominal? Because if we remain on phenomenal, it's going to be faulty again. Phenomenal is like, fluke. So being on a phenomenal scale, it's like, taking an objective exam, and at random we are marking anything ABCD. So sometimes it is correct, sometimes it is wrong, because our perception is only wrong. So sometimes it may hit, and sometimes it may miss. So, but if we stand on noumenal, then every move is going to be substantial and meaningful. So therefore, the aspect is that our knowledge should go towards a noumenal track, not just remain on a phenomenal track. So one way of doing it is, you may say, okay, so one person, perceptions are completely phenomenal. Let's take an aggregate of 2, 3, 4, 100, 1000, 2000, 5000, 10,000 people. So when we start aggregating, then we start talking about statistics. That, okay, let's say statistically, what does this mean? This is good or this is bad? So if we talk about statistics, you see now what happens. The moment you start applying statistics, okay, thousands of people, lakhs of people, like that, aggregation on that scale, then what starts getting formed? When you bring in statistics, a good number of statistics, then some ethics starts getting formulated, is it not? You have seen, just like people who are doing business, and they say, okay, business means okay, make profit anyway, Yeah, I think this battery is running low. I'm not sure why. Uh, there is some problem with the battery connection. This one is fine. Okay, let's hope it's okay. So, huh? Okay. Okay. So the journey from phenomenal to nominal. So now if we start basing it on statistics, okay, what so many people say and what so many people, then we start coming up with patterns. So when you say, okay, business is making profit, but then in seeing that everybody benefits and all, an individual person can cheat, loot, anything like that. But then if you start aggregating, then you say, okay, business means there are some value systems, there are some ethics. You make profit, but with ethics. This is how it is. So you start deriving some values out of it. That means the perspectives are deepening. In this way, one is traversing toward from phenomenal to nominal. So but then this involves a lot of yes. So that is how we can see by statistics, is it not? Now, if you integrate things over time, then also we may say that, okay, from phenomenal one can start moving toward nominal, is it not? Now, on the spur of the moment, I may not at all like to study, but if you try to integrate things over time, that okay, we may say, okay, maybe study gives the long term happiness, is it not? So it puts a person. So uh, that is another way in which one can traverse towards phenomenal and nominal, like that. The third and the third way of doing this is to derive knowledge from the shastras, from the Vedas, from God. That's an ontological, not time-tested representation of how of the depths at which our perceptions should be. So therefore, you will understand that in quantum mechanics, you can see that nothing is based on one or two measurements. It's all an aggregate of measurements. It's all an aggregate of measurements. So this aggregation aspect, this aggregation over time, aggregation over space, aggregation of number of particles, is basically deriving some value systems or patterns, which is what is taking the science further, because it is those patterns which can be brought to utility for mankind, is it not? That's the whole point. So quantum mechanics will yeah. So they'll tell you probably that the particle is at x or p, both cannot be measured. So now so we get some idea, but in life it's not just an idea, and a simple idea is not just enough actually. So one needs a very robust matrix not to stand erect in one's life actually. So therefore we will see that we need a very robust okay. Now, so some scientists are talking about this. Some of them say that okay, quantum mechanics is incomplete. Some others say yeah, that is complete, but x and p are not position and momentum. So basically, there is There is a limitation of our understanding actually, and this limitation of our understanding is existing because there is a great dimension which we are not trying to explore, that is a causal dimension actually. What is causing? There is a great dimension. We see things in separation, but we never see things holistically. So that vision has to be embedded, and that vision has to be embedded into our lives, and that vision comes when God comes in picture, and then everything, then everything we are seeing from God's eyes, the holistic eyes actually, and the causal dimensions. So in fact, we will see that, we have been talking about objectivity, and we have been talking about measurement, that how measurement actually reduce the possibilities, and therefore it creates a big difference between what we have in our hand and what is actual reality. So that's very true actually. That it's just like this. It's like no, because we are missing complete dimensions in itself. Now, like say for example, like suppose if a ball comes and hits me, a ball comes and hits me, like that. Now we can say, okay, the ball has come and hit me actually. Now we can say, okay, the ball came and hit. We can apply, v is u plus at, and s is ut plus half at square, and all kinds of things, and we can make a trajectory of how the ball came and how it hit and what force was imparted, what was its momentum, how much energy transfer took place, and all those factors we can evaluate. But none of those factors are capturing the experience which I'm feeling, is it not? The experience which I'm feeling, is it not? So uh, uh, so that's the point. So there are dimensions which are missing actually. We need to now broaden our spectrum of understanding and knowledge, and therefore we can get knowledge. uh, we can get knowledge beyond our small perspectives, uh, when we take shelter of God. Okay, let's take another example. So this is talking about observation language. He's saying, yeah. So he's saying, see the interesting point. He's saying that when you understand, then your statement refers to your experience. But when you feel, then your statement refers to reality. So this is so the experience mode. So when you understand, okay, we say, okay, logically it's correct. This is how it is, intellectually. So that's experience. So, you can give a form to an experience, but what you feel, that statement is reality, is it not? So he's saying here that, okay, we live our normal life as naive realism, that is P mode statement, also sufficient to describe R mode statement. So, yeah. So we will see. So this P mode, R mode is basically that we really don't live in a world which is we really don't make our day-to-day decisions simply from a mathematical perspective, but from an experience perspective actually. That from the depth of experience, mathematics can give a formation. It can give us a block diagram, it can give us measurements and so on, the world of physics. But that's not how we live our lives. We live our lives based on how we feel, what experience, the experience of our heart. That's what it means, that this is where it is. This is how we live actually. And now so this is how we live actually. So in this way we are trying to understand that yes, we need to add depths. There needs to be some depths into how we lead our lives, into how we lead our lives. So in this way, very interestingly nowadays, now from this aspect of a quantum vision, scientists are trying to. I mean, there is a surging wave of scientists who are talking about the matrix which can drive us forward. How to understand the universe. And now eminent scientists, philosophers, theologians, are coming together, to chant this swift in thinking. Then they are saying that, rather than thinking of everything from the perspective of mass or from the perspective of energy, we need to start seeing everything from the perspective of information, knowledge, information, knowledge. So that's why many scientists are, I mean, this is a surging wave which is coming in modern day science actually, where scientists are talking about, let's see, probably the understanding of the universe is going to be from the point of view of information or knowledge, the spectrum of information, knowledge. So information as the fundamental currency of the universe, not energy, but information. Because now we can try to understand this. This is quite interesting here. Why? Because okay, let's stop. Let's elaborate a bit more. So we can try to understand that why this is so interesting here. Now, when we are talking about information, it's to do with the knowledge. It's to do with the spectrum of how we interpret things. No, it is to do with working to make our perceptions more efficient and optimize them, is it not? It's talking about an interpretation, the methodology of how do we interpret things actually. That's what information is about actually. Information and knowledge is about actually. And this is the new wave which is coming in science. So yeah. So here is another example, to nudge you on that point, here is another point to actually another example to touch upon that point. He says, so here it says that our notions of reality start from ordinary language, which is qualitative. So now the bootstrapping physics come into picture. It becomes very precise. But then when we want to explain things, it again goes farther and farther. Yeah. So here we are saying that, okay, so no, it becomes precise, but we go farther and farther from common language. So now we say that, okay, many times when we talk about common language is going to be more ordinary language. Common language is more holistic, and I like that. Now, when you start making bootstrapping physics, it tries to make things more and more precise, but it goes away from common language. It becomes scientific realism. What we talked about before, common sense to scientific realism, actually. So scientific realism is basically modeling, but then modeling is only actually shrinking. The precision is basically shrinking the experience of reality. So in this way, we can understand that when we add, say when we add, now it's like this. Like, okay, so who am I as a, like if I want to measure myself, if I say, okay, I am, a CGPA, 8.9, or 9.0, and I am a computer science, and I am 40 lakh per annum, or I'm a double, so or blah blah blah, whatever, like that. So that's it's like when we say this, it's making things, a little precise, but then that's not going to help us in our experience of how we relate with people and how we see things and how we perceive things, and that's not changing the index of our life, basically the qualitative index of our life. But then when we add things like, now okay, what is my quality, what qualities I'm having, am I respectful towards others, am I selfless in my approach, you know do I see no, do I see others from a selfish vision or from a selfish vision? Is there service attitude or is there lust in my heart? So when I start seeing this and building up on this, then my experience is going to be enriched. My experience is going to be enriched, actually. This is where we will see that now. Yeah. Okay. So this is where I can try to see and try to understand that uh, that basically I need to enrich my my box of perceptions. I need to add more meaning and substantiality into it. Now, in language of quantum mechanics, the scientists are talking about, okay, uh, you know uh, to basically enrich this common language, and therefore, there is all the scientific realism, and then there is, if you make things in a different way of expressing it. So basically, different way of expression means what? That now you have changed your matrix. Now your tuple has become a little more holistic, and you have added qualitative subjectivity into it. So therefore, it has got enriched, and now therefore it has got enriched. So in that way, when we talk, then we can perceive things more powerfully. So it's all about, we can express things, we can perceive things more powerfully. So that is from that is the point from where comes the understanding that so from that understanding, we are seeing that, okay, let's start seeing things from this aspect, actually, from this aspect of actually enriching our perspective filters, actually. So perspective filters, and some of these not take no so now when we are observing the subatomic particles, uh, uh, and then when we talk about the principles of superposition and many such principles, actually, which are like so enchanting in quantum mechanics, we can try to understand that yes, it's about, our conceptions need to go deeper, to be able to understand that it's not this or that, but many things can exist in togetherness. And that's why we understand, okay, quantum mechanics in that sense is basically about, giving a pointer that it is basically experience, actually. It is basically a very a profound experience which defines, which determines the reality. And this is where now we are understanding, and this is where we can understand that in life, when we go behind the objective goals of say, money or name, fame, or material objects, then all we have is some quantitative descriptors of, of happiness, or what can make us successful, and so on. And if you just carry on that, it's going to be an empty shell inside. But when we are adding God, then it is then only then we are actually going deeper on the realm of behavior, actually. It is then and then it is then we are actually going into a deeper, more expressive, more powerful language, where we can speak a lot, where we can understand a lot, where we can feel a lot. So that's where we see that this is the role which Shastras can do in our lives, which God consciousness can do in our lives. Actually, it can, so it broadens our our perception, our knowledge filters. And when our filters are very broad and very in that light of knowledge, we can digest even provoking situations. So it all depends on digestive power. It all depends on digestive power. And so there needs to be, we need to incorporate this digestive power into our systems. And physically, yes, material body has limitations, but actually on the level of the spirit soul, there is no limitations. If we connect to God, the more and deeply we connect to God, we can overcome limitations. That means we can process and channelize and make sense of various situations in an auspicious manner. And therefore, for one who is a great, who is an advanced and expert and adept yogi, and who is an expert in connecting things to God, he can churn any kind of situation and convert it into an auspicious result for himself and the world at large. So at this thought, so we want to stop here at this thought actually. So we embarked on this journey of quantum mechanics. Now, from the perspective of, just to summarize, we embarked on this journey of quantum mechanics to actually try to make sense, or to try to understand how to drive through uncertainties and perceptions. Actually, the perceptions bias, which and the uncertainties in life, actually, to make sense of the probabilistic things shooting out, actually, to drive out some patterns. And then we were trying to understand that yes, we need to become more holistic when we talked about common sense and scientific realism, and not just make mathematical goals and figures and facts and and artifacts like that, but then becoming more holistic. And more holistic many times means more holistic means that yes, more qualitative, actually, more qualitative. We were understanding that actually matter cannot be dealt from an exploitative vision, because matter is not impersonal, everything is personal. There is God behind, and because there is the hand of God, then matter is manifesting in a personal perspective. And we saw that from the double slit experiment. We saw that from the principle of superposition. And in this way, we can try to understand that there is super consciousness behind. Unless we tune into the super consciousness, we cannot understand consciousness. And unless we master the channelization of consciousness, we are always going to land in accidents, because we have no control. We have no control of situations like that, and therefore accidents are always going to be there. So that's what we that's what we understood, actually. And then we are understanding that yes, it's not about how do I see things. We need to enrich our vision. That's why we're talking about phenomenal and noumenal reality. So we need to go towards noumenal reality to enrich our experience. And that's where now we see that now when we have that enriched experience, then so we were, in that sense, we were discussing that how even in the field of quantum mechanics now, the enriching aspect is being talked about. That it's not energy, it's not mass, it's information. It's basically knowledge. It's basically an enriched radar. It's an enriched broad radar, actually, holistic radar, which can help us in process, which can help us to process contradictory behaviors, provoking situations, and so on, actually. And that is exactly what spiritual science is teaching us to do. That's exactly what spiritual science is teaching us to make us expert in processing these probabilistic, uncertain situations, actually, and derive some meaning and auspiciousness for oneself and the world at large. Thank you very much.
So we thank Mayank sir for this wonderful session. It's a very insightful and very thoughtful session, uh, quantum and consciousness. And we learned how nothing is impersonal and how uh, the quantum science
Okay, so
also
if
is
you have
going.
some questions, you can quickly type it over,
Yes, if you have questions, you can
or you
send
can
over
think
the
about
chat.
it. Churn, this was uh, yeah, this requires a bit of churning to really see that yes, uh, uh, the shastras and the knowledge which the shastras are giving us are basically are playing such a role in enhancing the quality of our lives. So uh, and in understanding that yes, it's a state of our heart which is more important, which is the most important thing, or you can say which is the very engine of our whole body, which can be made of our success accolades, our J ranks, CGPAs, and all kinds of awards and achievements actually. But the engine of it all is what is the qualities which are installed in our hearts. What is the uh, uh, what is the matrix, what is the matrix of our uh, what is the matrix, how robust is our perceptive systems actually. So so that's why let us add this amazing dimension of being expert in taking shelter or connecting to God, and this way making every situation in our lives very auspicious. So I'll stop here, churn it over, and if you have questions, you can always get back to us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.